Hello and welcome to the show. To start off this week's BeamNG Drive Canyon Rally, I've got a race spec Moonhawk. Now, I don't quite know when this car was added to the game. I hadn't seen it before, but it's possible I just haven't played around with the Moonhawk for quite some time. But yeah, I was quite curious to see. We did have the Night Snake, like a high-end Barstow, went down this course, but I was very interested to see how a racing muscle car would fare on this route. And there was plenty of speed across the crest at turn 1, quite nicely controlled, and I've got to say, this was a very, very good handling vehicle. It surprised me, actually, just how well it drove. The brakes were very good indeed, and on this first run, things were actually going relatively well. However, I may have got a little bit of a slide on as I went to get on the power. I caught it, but in doing so, I may have overcorrected ever so slightly and sort of twitched my way off the side of the mountain. Wasn't my greatest driving moment, I will be honest, with the with the vehicle as it slowly rolls its way down the hill. It's little bit of a mess, the car, but I learned a fair bit. The boot did like to get crumpled up and kind of unattach itself. I don't quite know what went on with that, why in particular on this vehicle. However, that is something that you'll see quite a lot. As I said, the handling, fantastic. Was easy to get a little bit carried away. As I was on this run to try to take more and more speed through these fast corners, and it's got good grip but not that much grip. And then we've got a small barbecue going on at the back of the vehicle. Suspension itself actually dealt with the course very, very well, although that was asking a little bit too much of it. Just catch the sign on our way past, and that sort of punches the rear tyre, and I haven't got enough control. That's a fast corner, braking zone down into turn 2, and yeah, the car will go for a spin. Now, the fuel tank, much like we had last time out with the Pazima, the fuel tank in this could rupture on a heavy landing, and sure enough, this time it was very much on fire again. I was not quite as far wrong through these faster corners as I had been the previous time, but still a little bit too much speed. Also, the car's sort of running over its own face. It loses a little bit of a sorry sight that time out. Out of the hairpin, the car could, you can see I ruptured the fuel tank again, the car could get turned in pretty well to some of these corners, and that time I aimed for the bush and was a little bit too tight to the apex of the corner, ran across the sort of the inside dirt, and that launched the car, and I didn't have time to catch it before going off the side of the mountain, and then we go for a nice, quite slow, graceful roll down the side of the canyon. No fire this time around, and no car flag either with the Moonhawk, unfortunately. However, it really didn't take too long to get the hang of driving this vehicle. It is quite possibly now one of my favourite cars that I've driven in BeamNG Drive. It handles so very, very well. A lot of the cars in this game do tend to they tend to understeer quite a lot and then be fairly snappy oversteery if they do get to oversteer. This has just got a lot of grip. It's just got a lot of grip, and it will turn into the corners sort of like you expect a race car to. It is a really very, very nice car to drive. Brakes are very good. The suspension is also pretty sturdy. It can survive these fairly large hits. I didn't have too many problems with it just sort of spearing off the course after bouncing around, and considering it is a race car, that's not bad going. We've seen sort of a lot of the very, very ultra stiff race cars have a lot of problems across the bumps, across the big bridge jump. Unfortunately, on this ride, I do get a little bit wrong with the hairpin. I tried to get on the power a fraction too soon, and we did not have enough grip to carry that speed. Had to let off the throttle briefly before repositioning the car down into this tunnel hairpin. The brakes were good, even across the bumpy braking zones. Again, they've caught out many a car, the very bumpy braking zones around here, but the Moonhawk was absolutely fine through them. The speed, acceleration, and so on, pretty good. Not up there with the very fastest cars, the likes of the Hillclimb cars, but still pretty damn quick as we run through these final corners. This time I wasn't quite pushing my luck so much through here, still carrying respectable speed as we round the final turn with the tiniest hint of oversteer. That would be the Moonhawk down the Canyon Rally course. If you haven't played around with this car, if you didn't realise this was a configuration for the Moonhawk, or you haven't played Beam for a while, go and have a go with it. I absolutely love driving this car. It is an awful lot of fun. The Moonhawk is a pretty damn tough vehicle as well. It can survive a fair bit of punishment, and this race spec is quick and excellent handling, and a really rather awesomely good looking car as well. Up next, it was time for the almighty wing, the SBR4 Hillclimb car. Now, I did do the other two Hillclimb cars a few episodes ago. When I filmed all of that, this car hadn't quite been released into the game yet, but now that it is here, I figured it was time to have a go with the crazy car. The other two cars had pretty impressive wings, but nothing quite beats this these vehicles. It is, yeah, tremendous. And then there is the power. The acceleration in this thing is absolutely ridiculous. There's 122 miles an hour before we get to the crest at turn 1 and somehow get away with it. It's quite impressive to have got away with it. It carried out a lot of speed over that crest. Of course, plenty of downforce pushing the car into the ground over there, and the suspension surprisingly dealt with it as well. Again, incredible acceleration up towards the bridge jump. It catches me out just how fast it is going. I tried to get on the brakes, but it's not quite in time. Very heavy landing. I then had a wheel on the dirt as I tried to slow down for the next corner and couldn't do it. Just far too much speed. Far too much speed at that section, and now we've managed to make a tripod out of our car, but yeah, don't want to be taking that much speed through that part of the course. It is ridiculously fast. We saw about 112, 116 miles an hour from the Moonhawk. This was up to 140. The bumps, though, did get the better of it. Quite unspectacular. To have gone wrong at that sort of speed in this area of the track, it was quite an unspectacular crash for the SBR4, just ending up spinning around quite slowly and then going backwards slightly up a hill. We only slightly broke the front splitters, so yeah, not the most spectacular of crashes. Again, the sign would catch another car, this time a little bit more damaging for this hill climb. I got the jump ever so slightly wrong. I had the wheels on the sort of the outside dirt, couldn't pull the car away in time at the speed I was going as well. Very little time to react to anything. Can we just sort of graze along the side of the car? I say graze, sort of tore the side of the car off, losing the wheels and flinging the vehicle off down the canyon. Really got to be careful with that sign. That sign is a vicious bugger. It has claimed many cars. Now, this bridge jump was a little bit more of a problem than usual because of the brutal acceleration in this car. You had to really make sure you slowed it down because you'd be going many, like 20, 30 miles an hour too fast for the jump if you weren't careful. And if you got it wrong, like I did there, I got on the brakes and I think I slightly locked the rears up and the car was twitching. I couldn't get it under control in time. Likewise, having already lost the wing after brushing the Armco at turn 2, this next jump, similar story, just didn't quite get the landing right, and that was a fair amount of damage done to the vehicle. A big stop into this tunnel hairpin, and I left it a fraction too late on the brakes. We just ran along the dirt, lifted the car up, and, well, car up in the air, we're not going to have enough turning to make the corner, and now we're off tumbling down the mountain. The wing held on pretty well in this crash. For a car flipping out of control, the wing stayed on for about 3 rolls before it eventually grazed the floor and was detached. I think we might have lost all but one wheel in that one. Another big moment under brakes, locking those rears up, and it's a graceful roll in the end. Snap off the other wing strut, sorry, as well. No actual like mechanical damage was done to the car in that roll. It just, yeah, did roll and slid its way down the road on its roof. A truly crazily fast car, this one. Suspension did hold up a little bit better than I was expecting. Certainly had to be careful over this crest at turn 1. You see the way that the car bounces around a little bit on the landing there. You could sometimes get away. I was a little bit cautious on this run. You could sometimes get away with perhaps more speed over that crest, but then you really risked it on the landing and trying to get it slowed down for the second corner. Again, up here, make sure you get the car slowed down to about the 70-mile-an-hour mark, and it will fly quite nicely over there. You've got to make sure you don't lock up the brakes. I think the brakes were perhaps the most difficult factor in this car. Well, I say the brakes. I think it was more that because the car was so brutally fast accelerating, or going so much faster coming up to a braking zone than pretty much everything else that has gone down here. So that was, yeah, something that you really had to contend with. About 108 miles an hour coming into the tunnel hairpin. Quite a bit of a lockup down there, frantically trying to get the car stopped. We do get it stopped a little bit, running wide on the exit there, but we can get the car sorted out and then blast down towards these final few high-speed turns. It's not quite the same crazy high speed this time around. Had to, yeah, get the car all under control through here. Carrying okay speed, couldn't quite carry as much speed through here as I was expecting. I do wonder if we can kind of see the front splitter was a little bit damaged, I think, from possibly from the jump. I wonder if that might not have been helping me through there, because as you saw, I was struggling to get the car turned, and it wasn't really going that much faster than I think about the same speed as the race Moonhawk. And I was flat out around the final turn. 122 miles an hour is not really doable at that corner. I had to give it a go. I chucked the car across the finish line, but yeah, when you got this much speed, this much acceleration, not too helpful. And finally, we have got a buggy. The RG Vortexx is the name of this vehicle. We've got some nice bright rally spotlights going on at the front. Of course, suspension on this should be more than capable of dealing with the demands of this course. While you see the very stiff suspension of the race cars, the Hillclimb cars, bounce around, even the stanced car that went out last time, the easiest example, you see the way they bounce around on the landings, the suspension just too stiff. This isn't going to have that problem whatsoever. It isn't as quick in a straight line. It does have fairly short gear ratio. First gear is a very weird thing in this car. First gear kind of doesn't really... Other than the very, very initial launch, you've almost immediately got to change up into second, because first gear kind of doesn't really go anywhere with the car. So yeah, we haven't quite got the crazy speed or acceleration, especially having just driven the SBR4. The suspension is more than capable of dealing with the bumps. Unfortunately, we got very, very close to having an accident on the landing when I didn't quite position the buggy in the right place. Now, I did actually make it almost all the way to the finish. I was throwing the car through these corners with some serious speed, seeing what it could do. However, the very soft suspension, while good at dealing with the bumps and the jumps, perhaps not quite so good at dealing with the high-speed cornering. It just all got a little bit floaty and a little bit woolly in terms of trying to get the car turned, and I lost control of it at the final part of that section. Likewise, as we leave the pond hairpin, it's a big wiggle from the Vortex. I was frantically trying to get it under control. We hit the jump very awkwardly, and when the car landed back down again, with such soft suspension, it was moving about a lot, and I couldn't gather it all back up again. Impressive cartwheel, though, on its way down the mountain there. Not quite as good as the remote control cars, however... That was, for a full-size vehicle, that might be one of the more impressive cartwheels I think I have done. The vehicle was actually still working, aside from, well, the snapped-up wheels. It did still just about have drive. At the tunnel hairpin, I got a little bit eager to get the car turned in. I realised I'd turned in too soon, just like the second I'd done it, but there was just no time to react to it. I knew the car was going over, but yeah, don't turn in too soon to that corner. There, sort of later on in the turn, you can get away with kind of cutting the inside a bit, but at that point, there is a rather large dirt mound on the inside. Landing of the bridge jump, while it can be done flat out, you had to be careful that you didn't twist the car on takeoff, otherwise you end up fighting around a lot with the vehicle. You can't really get on the brakes if you're still fighting around with the car, because you're going to have an accident, and in all of that I was carrying too much speed, couldn't stop, ended up rolling it, slightly in panic I think. Anyway, to finish the trifecta of cars being destroyed by the sign, I managed to get the buggy with two wheels stuck on the dirt, couldn't pull the car off the dirt in time, and we went straight through the sign. Didn't do too much damage, kind of bent up a front wheel and we lost the sort of front bull bars. But yeah, the sign got every single one of the vehicles today. I wonder how many cars that sign has claimed. I think quite a few in this series so far. Anyway, it was a little bit of it was a bit of a different car, in all honesty, compared to the two vehicles that I had driven previously to it that were very, very fast race cars, essentially. This a little bit of a different prospect. I mean, you can see it moving around on the suspension. You can see how much it's kind of compressing the suspension and leaning through the corners, which is very different to the previous two cars, and it was something to deal with. You see it as it enters the bridge, it actually does get just tipped sideways ever so slightly. Amazingly, despite running along the cliffs there, I get away with it, and because it was bouncing around along on the dirt, I actually slowed the car down really neatly for the next corner. I thought it was a goner when I ended up out there, but that was not the case. I could get away with running that very tight inside line with the buggy. When I did that with the Moonhawk, you saw it go falling off the course, but with this, the suspension was compliant enough to run over that section and not have any issues whatsoever. Didn't turn in too soon this time around. You see me using a bit of a tighter line on the exit there. When you got things right with this vehicle, it was actually not that bad to drive at all. It did have some half-decent decent corner speed. Now, actual speed, well, it was geared relatively shortly, only 4 gears in it, and it was only about 80 miles an hour down here, so it was losing a fair amount of time coming towards this final section as try and get the car turned in, but I didn't want to upset the suspension too much with quick changes of direction. That could cause issues for the Vortex as we run up towards the final corner. It is across the line for the buggy, and then we jump and brakes, get the car slowed down relatively easily as it wasn't really going at ridiculous speeds. So yeah, a bit of a different car, quite interesting one to drive down the course. Whatever followed the SBR4 Hillclimb car was always going to struggle, feeling incredibly slow in comparison. But yeah, dealt with the bumps very, very well. On to the times, and it's not quite what I was expecting at the top of the table. We do have 3 Hillclimb cars in the top 3, however, the Sunburst is still the fastest. The SBR4 could only manage a 132.6. The Sunburst, that little bit quicker. I wasn't quite expecting that. The SBR4 does beat the Pazima, but still, yeah, not quite what I was expecting up there. The race Moonhawk goes into 12th place, a 138.6. Again, I was expecting perhaps a little quicker. It felt a little quicker. It felt quite good fun to drive, so yeah, I was perhaps thinking that might have gone a bit faster. However, we are over a second faster than the Night Snake variant of the Barstow. You know, we're quicker than the ETK 800 series, high-powered four-wheel drive estate car. So pretty good going still from that Moonhawk. And the Vortex is down in 21st place, 148.5. Beats the Ford LTD, the Roma, the GL83. Despite its complete and utter lack of straight-line speed, I mean, being limited to about 80 miles an hour, not ideal for this course. It could make up sometimes in the rougher sections. Being flat out over the jump is always helpful, and so on. Yeah, it did pretty well considering its limitations in terms of speed for this, what is a relatively fast rally course. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. As ever, I will put links to all of the mods that I've used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.